Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to the House of Bigelow, the latest ongoing series in Houselights, where we examine the work of directors. And this time it's Kathryn Bigelow, and we are working through her oeuvre, her list, her filmography, and we come to 1995's Strange Days. I am one of your humble hosts, your blackjack dealer for the little Sony mini disc that goes on top of your head, John, quote unquote, Lenny Mills. And I am joined by the virtuous police commissioner who kicked me off of the force, Darren Moser, and my suspiciously long-haired best friend, Tristan Riddell. I welcome you both to this look at the future from the past. Kathryn Bigelow's giant, epic Strange Days from 1995, boasting an all-star cast. And I'm going to go right off the bat. I'm going to jump right in. Usually we talk about first time seeing it, those sorts of things. And Darren, I know this was your first time seeing it, but I will throw the first question to you. How disorienting is it to watch something from decades ago postulating on a future 4 years from when it was set that's now 30 years behind us? And how far off do you think that it was in its predictions?
Oh, so, 8 questions. Okay, that's good.
Yes.
No, I think I will give it, as far as like the tech and the sci-fi element of, the squid and the technology, I like that they kept it at one thing. They're like, this is a single piece of technology. If they can get you on board with that, it's part of the story. But it's not like, and we also have this and, these other pieces of technology that don't exist. So I was happy with the conservativeness of that prediction. Also, I think Kathryn talked about how she was not inspired is probably the wrong word, but influenced by the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles, because boy, every shot of the street in LA is like, why are you out of your house? There's this like a war zone. It's worse than RoboCop 3 war zone. And that's, even stretching it. So all that to say, I didn't mind it being set in 99, watching it from 20 plus years in the future, because I don't think it was really taking a giant leap. Yeah, the riots is, a bit. Star Trek's taken more leaps in the future, with their prediction of the late 90s than this movie did. Like, it was actually very grounded.
That's fair. That's fair. Tristan, do you think that looking at this movie, especially through the lens of now, that you see some of the angst that people were starting to feel as early as 1995 about the turn of the millennium?
I don't think it was necessarily the angst of the turn of the millennium, more so the angst of being in a post-Rodney King world. I really do believe that, like, when you're watching it, like, Darren was talking about, like, even when you look at the streets and how it's shot and where they shoot in Los Angeles is very much evocative of the riots could happen at any time. The incitement could happen. Like, this city is a powder keg. And so I think it was kind of odd to make it about the turn of the century, about to make it, 2000. I don't think that was really necessary. I really don't like that was one thing that kind of stuck out to me as odd, was that was a focal point, because I don't think you needed that at all. I mean, like, if you wanted to make it New Year's, sure, make it New Year's. But the whole end of the world, new millennium thing, it felt a little out of place, where the rest of it felt very in vibe with the time. And it's what was that? Oh, geez, what was that movie that we reviewed where? Oh, it was Predator 2.
Yeah,
yeah, Predator 2. Like, you could tell, like, this, like, it's this phobia, it's this nervousness of how things are only going to get worse.
It's interesting. I like the way you phrase that, because I think that there is definitely a a vibe, but it seems to come from people who are living closer to LA at the time than other cities necessarily. I mean, New York went through its post-apocalyptic thing in the 80s, Escape from New York, The Warriors, which was 79, but whatever, you get my point. Like, New York had gone through its post-apocalyptic thing, and then it seems like the 90s were LA's post-apocalyptic vision of the world, whereas a lot of other movies in the 90s were a lot more fun and carefree. Like it's interesting. It almost seems like it's a regional concern. Not concern. I'm not diminishing it. I'm saying like LA seems to be where things were really focused, because you mentioned Predator 2 and then this film. But Darren, to what Tristan is talking about, do you think that this film from the outset is adequately structured to deal with all of the themes that he just went through? Oh, the racial anxiety, the future anxiety, the military police state. Like, there's a lot going on in this movie about the world. Is it structured in such a way that supports that?
Yeah, it's definitely swinging for the fences in what it's trying to accomplish. It's almost like it takes all this time to set up this big narrative. Again, when talking about the riots, the fact that in the background of every shot, there's like tanks and squads of, police with riot shields. And it's almost jarring, because I'm like, why are people going about their lives? Like, that doesn't make any sense, that there isn't a group of people cowering. But then it tries to tell this tiny story that takes place in like a city block. And I'm like, okay, are you telling the big story? Or are you telling the little story? And not that you can't create the world. Like, obviously that's important, but yeah, at the end of the day, I don't even know. I guess with more thought, I could probably suss it out, but nothing really struck me as, oh, this is the message of the movie. Because it's trying at all these different ways, talking about the cops, talking about race, talking about, inequality. They have little spiels about nothing's going to get better. I guess I would say that's it. It's nothing is going to get better, so get what you can while you can. Like, that is kind of the underlying theme of many of these characters.
Okay, I think that's a fair way to approach it, but with the way that it opens, it's very jarring. Like, you're instantly thrown into that first person perspective sort of camera work, where you're experiencing what it would be like to watch one of these experiences with the rig on your head. And Bigelow and her director of photography actually pioneered a different kind of rig so that they could get something more like eye movement of what it would be like to be in that first person perspective. Like, I would think back to, if you look back at a film like John Carpenter's Halloween, that very famously opens with the first person perspective of Michael Myers as a kid, you can tell that it's a camera with somebody reaching from, just off and stuff like that. There's some distortion. Tristan, do you think that this represents a leap in terms of how the first person perspective stuff is shot? Or do you think that this is an unrecognized leap forward? Or do you think that this is just good for the equipment of the time?
This was an unrecognized leap forward. And you could really tell that you needed someone like Bigelow and Cameron behind the scenes in order to get this to happen. You needed innovative minds like them in order to make it happen. And it's true. Like, while I was watching it, I had to double check the date, because this was phenomenal POV. Because there's so many movies before and so many after where the POV is just shaky cam. It's just first person shaky cam. That's all it is. And that's fine if that's what you want to go. Or you have like a chest mount where like that happens a lot. It's kind of like the reverse of that. I almost said Stanley, Spike Lee shot where, like he has the chest rig and it shows the camera pointed at the person's face. And so their face is centered in the frame. And so the background is moving all like crazy. It's, like there's some cinematographers who do the reverse of that, where it's just a chest cam and the camera is rigged in front, and then it's like really stilted, and you it's kind of like wobbly back and forth, but not in a natural way. This was done where you could see it as eyes darting left and right, up and down, diagonal, and it was much more fluid without being floaty. And that is a really, really hard line to walk. And this really pulled it off. And I applaud it and the cinematographer and Bigelow and Cameron for being able to develop that. And I kept looking online to see a picture of the rig, and I can't find it.
I know. I kind of want to see that. I mean, I'm reading, what did they say? Multifaceted cameras. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I want to see a picture, because you're right. It wasn't just a lockdown, straightforward shot. It had eye movement, but you have to be very subtle on that, because if you're darting around, the viewer is getting nauseous. And while I could see, where the cuts were in some of the sequences, they were very well hidden, like stumbling and looking left really quickly. I'm like, oh, there's obviously a little cut there, but it didn't ever take me out of it. It was always a well done transition, because obviously they're shooting on film still at this point. So it's a tiny camera that's probably loud as hell, cranking.
It was an 8. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, it was an 8-pound, 35 millimeter camera.
Wow.
That you could put in front of you. That's amazing. But the thing is, like you said, Darren, it was so loud that they actually couldn't record any audio. So they had to, for the opening scene, they had to redub everything. They had to ADR everything in post.
Oh, yeah, because if anyone's heard a camera right next to a microphone, it sounds like a helicopter taking off. It's really loud, especially if you're trying to get a certain sort of frame rate.
I'm going to ask you this question first, Darren. Obviously, I never went to any sort of like school for it. I can, break things apart. I've seen lots of film. I've had discussions with people, but you're talking about the technical stuff there with Tristan. Do you see this first-person camera work that's going on here, and you understand the technical challenges they overcame? Do you see modern cinema benefiting from digital? Like, is this film so far ahead of its time that it would have been easier and better to shoot it now than back then?
Oh, definitely. I mean, nowadays you would strap a GoPro or an iPhone and you have something that's a fraction of the weight and is silent. So, yeah, the fact that they did it, I didn't think about it until after finishing the movie, but then thinking about the point of view shot, I was like, oh, well, Cameron worked on this. Of course, like of anyone in this era who would be like, we're going to make this cool movie, but we're also going to have to spend a year of R&D making a unique camera to pull it off. There's one person on that list who would do that, and that's James Cameron. So, but yeah, nowadays, I think of, you could also shoot it with a 360 camera, and then later edit in the motion of the eye movement, because you're capturing the entire frame. But it's finding that balance between a wide angle lens, which we all know what that looks like. And that's usually what POV is get the camera as close to the face as possible and really widen it out. Because that's the trick about our human perception, is we kind of have a mix of peripheral that we're not paying attention to, but we kind of intrinsically see, and our telephoto focus in front of us, and then we can swing that focus around. But in a movie camera, it's all or nothing. It's everything is the focus. So, but yeah, more props to them for making it in the 90s than in the 2000s or 2010s.
But Tristan, do you see modern filmmakers pulling this off as well? Do you think that Bigelow pulls off these first person perspective shots? Do you think that the limitations of the technology back then made these shots better because they had to plan them so significantly to get them to go right?
Probably, definitely. With that second question, I think definitely, like, it's interesting because, like, when you compare digital editing to analog editing, where when back in, like, when you were Spielberg often talked about the differences between making Jaws and making something like Minority Report or later, where, you know, when you're making Jaws, it takes you like 15 minutes to cut to make a cut. And so you have to really, really figure out if that's where you want to cut. Like, is this where you want to cut the scene? Is this where you want to cut the shot? You really got to think about it because it's going to take you a while. 15 minutes is an exaggeration, but you know, in digital filmmaking on just a computer, you make that cut. You can do it 15 different ways in a minute. And so when you're prepping a shot like this, or when you're prepping technology, you have to really figure out what it looks like. And I feel like with digital filmmaking, one of the drawbacks is also one of the advantages is that you're like, oh, well, we can get it like this 15 different ways and just figure it out later. Like with the 360 cam, that's a great idea, Darren. But at the same time, you're getting all the information so you can decide later instead of, you know, deciding on set, which again has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. And so I feel like Soderbergh does POV really well, especially with his latest film, Presence. You know, that's all POV of a ghost. And so it's really floaty and it's really, you know, like kind of ambient. And so it's not like this at all, but he famously utilizes the iPhone in a very specific type way, and he uses it in ways that you couldn't use a normal 38 millimeter camera or even a regular digital camera because it's so thin and you can put it in different places. But like if you look at, I know this is a glaring example, but the Doom movie with The Rock, not Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. You know, a lot of that was POV, and it was weird because they were trying to go for a video game feel, but yet it was nauseating. And with Strange Days, you could easily make the argument, oh, it feels like a video game, but it doesn't. Like just because it's first person doesn't mean it feels like a video game. It feels like you're actually in it, which was the point.
So Darren, with all of the technical stuff that we spent so long talking about, which is easy to, you know, it's a rabbit hole to go down. This is your first time watching it. Do you think that they spent more time developing the tech than developing the script? Or did they find the right balance?
It's not a bad balance. I think the times that we do use the POV shot, it's not every frame, it's not every shot that's used sparingly for the narrative. I think I will give them that. I don't feel like, oh, look, another POV and it's like 30 minutes and boy, you know, why are we in this? It makes me kind of think of, what was it? Final Cut. That Robin Williams weird
I remember that
movie.
one, man. Yeah. That's a weird movie.
The only thing I loved about that movie was his like editing station, because it was just like every editor's nerd dream of like just conducting your edit basically with giant wheels and tumblers. But in
call it a cutter.
Yeah, I was a bit of a nerd and wanted to call myself that in editing school, but nobody got on board. So I would have called you that, Tristan. If you'd called me, we would have been bros. But
I get you, man. I get you.
But no, in Strange Days, yeah, it you know, this is a 90s movie. It feels like a 90s movie. It feels like the kind of movies where we interact with people and, you know, down on your luck, just trying to get through another night, you know, running the streets, but also with my cool piece of future tech that sits on your head. But I liked it. I liked the overall story. We spent a ton of time, with Lenny. We know it's his story. There's no protagonist confusion, dear Lord. There's, it's all about him and trying to come through this, a short amount of time. It's like only 2 or 3 nights that we're actually experiencing of his life. So all that to say, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characterization and the plot, but it's also just, it's kind of a B movie. As so far as like, there's nothing that's shocking me or rocking me or, I got to watch that again. we've talked a lot about movies that pull it off in the last act, and you're like, oh, I'm ready for more. And not that this didn't have a good last act, but it was kind of like big budget TV movie vibe. Like it had a lot of money behind it. It had some amazing shots. I'm still amazed by the helicopter shot of downtown Los Angeles at night, where they pan down and there's a crowd of like 10,000 people, which apparently there were. I'm assuming the other shots must have been a model or something, but that shot just totally blew me over. But that was my overall vibe, I would say, with the story.
Tristan, given the complexity of the story, you're coming back, you're revisiting it. I don't know what you thought of it the first time you saw it, but taking a
this
more
was the first time I saw it.
Oh, this was the first time you saw it. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry. I thought you had seen this before.
Nope, not at all.
Oh my
Today
goodness.
was the first day.
So, given that fact that you're coming in and you're seeing this for the first time, like Darren, same question to you. Do you think that they spent so much time on the tech that they should have spent more time leaning the script down,
No.
narrowing the
No.
focus? No?
No, I love the script. I thought that was one of the best things about the movie was the script. I think this was, I think Jay Cox did a fantastic job with writing the dialogue. I feel like I wish all James Cameron screenplays were like this, where he would take the story. It's a James Cameron story, with input from Kathryn Bigelow. He writes a treatment, and he writes out the story beats. He writes the treatment, and then lets somebody else do the dialogue. That is exactly how a James Cameron film should go. And I think Jay Cox he nailed the noir and the cyberpunk vibe, and Lenny's verbiage is so perfect that it's shocking. Like the language is so unique and different, and there's so many different pronouns and unique words that are repurposed and reused for this age and for this applicable world and technology, that it felt so effortless coming from Ralph Fiennes' mouth. And so I feel like it's a combination of Jay Cox words read by, or I should say recited by Ralph Fiennes, directed by Kathryn Bigelow. I think probably my main complaint is that it should be shorter. It should be trimmed down a little bit. Like there is fat there. It should be compacted, because I think when you get to the 90-minute mark, I'm not saying it should have ended at 90 minutes, but like you look at your watch and you're like, I have 45 more minutes. Good Lord. Actually more than that at that point. Like you have almost an hour more. That's insane. It's too long. But the script itself is solid.
Yeah, I want to echo that for a sci-fi movie, and I'll say that because of the technology. I mean, obviously, it's like 90% not sci-fi, but for the sci-fi elements, it is really, really hard to introduce a new technology to your viewers and give it slang and have it not sound atrocious. It is really, really hard. And this movie, I agree with Tristan, it nailed it. The way they delivered lines of like, oh, I deal with like blackouts, and, just like, you're like, oh, he means a video about someone killing themselves. Like he didn't have to explain it. He didn't have to draw it out. And there was not a ton of slang. There was maybe 10 phrases throughout the whole movie, but they were all around the technology and things like that. But they worked really well. And they felt like, even their explanation where they're like, oh yeah, this was developed by the FBI as a replacement for The Wire. And then of course it went underground. I'm like, I'm sold. You've sold me. I believe that this technology exists and that there's obviously people who use it for nefarious means. But yeah, with the length and what Tristan said, Philo being the villain, I felt like we should have really only seen him at the end. The fact that we kind of interacted with him, met him, and then left, and then we came and saw him again, and then we saw him a third time. Like there wasn't really a buildup because he was only what he was every time.
I'm gonna stop you right there because I never advocate for less Michael Wincott, and so I'm just gonna have to say that's a no for me.
Michael Wincott was great. I'm not denying that, but
The thing I loved was that Michael Wincott playing Philo is a natural extension of him playing Paul Rothschild, a music producer in Oliver Stone's The Doors, another movie that we've covered here on Houselights. So I'm like, well, this is a natural progression for his career. That absolutely makes sense.
And this is not an insult to Wincott whatsoever, but there was more than a few times that I heard his character from Robin Hood as the sheriff of Nottingham's cousin. There was just a few lines where like he just delivered it, and he's like, "Why a spoon, cousin?" You know, it's just I don't know.
Yep. That's very fair. That's very fair. But
I kept hearing the Count of Monte Cristo role, like of him as the head of the Shadow Dief. Like I was like, you're just slimy. You're not a good person. I can tell.
Listen, he knows where his bread is buttered.
Exactly.
He totally knows.
Michael Wincott is a guy who's completely comfortable being typecast through his whole career, where he was like, yeah, okay, fine. I got the voice. I
was really surprised in Nope. Like his character in Nope.
I never saw that.
He wasn't slimy at all. He was one of the good guys. And I was just like,
that's disorienting.
Whoa.
That's really
like
disorienting.
when you pull in Gary Oldman and you're like, but you're the goodie? Okay.
No, that would be
okay.
That would be like finding out that there are so many different actors you could bring in where it's like when they play the good guy, you're like, wait, what? This doesn't make any sense. But given that statement, this doesn't make any sense, and you know the shine we're giving to the script and the way that things are handled, is there anything in this, Tristan, that didn't make sense to you? Is there anything where when they were explaining it with exposition later or anything where you're like, well, wait a minute, what about that? Like, was there anything that didn't line up for you? Or do you think that everything is successful in terms of tying together cleanly?
I wouldn't say that there's anything that didn't make sense. I think there were certain things that might have been overly complicated here or there. Because when Tom Sizemore's character Max, like, this is one thing I really hate about movies, and books do this too a lot, like mystery books or murder books and everything like that. It's just like 10 pages before it's over, the bad guy explains literally everything, and it can be exhausting. Where like you don't over explain the death squads, and I think it's insult to injury when we start doing flashbacks to remind the audience that like, oh no, this actually did happen. And, you know, they're not just talking about it now. We layered it, you know, like I feel like that there were certain things, I know that doesn't really, I kind of took this question to do a different example, but like that was something where there were certain things that Max was talking about that might've been overly complicated, but not confusing.
Darren, I want to throw that to you though. Do you think that, the use of flashback at the end when explanations are being given is almost an accidental admission that the movie has gone on too long because they realize, oh, it's been so long since we talked about that. We'd better show the shot so that people remember.
Yeah, it's not the strongest narrative take. It's also, how do you show a flashback in a movie specifically about POV, which also has to look different? So you've already kind of used that trick. So, because technically all the POVs are flashbacks. If you think about it, they're previous events that have already occurred. So I would have been really cautious about using a flashback tool as well. I think it could have done without, but I mean, I saw this through one sitting. So I didn't feel the need for that much of a reminder, that much of a tap on the shoulder of, don't forget when I said that 20 minutes ago, or it was, although I will say with Max's character from early on, I was like, so when's he going to betray us? Like it was too much of a, why is this guy on the story if he's not going to either die or betray us in the end? And so I was not surprised that it was Max in the end.
I'll say for me, that's the Michael Wincott principle, because when Tom Sizemore walks on screen, I just don't trust him. I'm like, all right, fine. Like that's a great example of take Tom Sizemore and put him in a movie where he doesn't betray anybody. Black Hawk Down. I was like, oh, okay, all right. He's okay through the whole thing. Okay, cool. He's an okay guy. So with all of the praise that we've given it so far, Tristan, why do you think that this movie has such trouble finding an audience in 1995? There are so many different factors, and you can Monday morning quarterback everything to death. But honest question: is it the length? Is it the subject matter? Is it just wrong time to be talking about this? Are people not ready for it? Why do people have such a hard time with this movie that it winds up being a bomb on the scale that people refer to it as almost ending Bigelow's career?
Yeah. I think it's definitely multiple factors. I would love to know what kind of budget they put behind it in marketing.
A lot.
It makes
as somebody who was old enough to remember it. Oh my God. I remember how much they put behind this in terms of talking the visionary new film. This is there was a trailer for it that was a specific callback to American Gigolo with Richard Gere, which was a touchstone movie from the 70s where Ralph Fiennes is talking to the screen, talking you into, he's doing his sales pitch to you. Have you ever tuned in? Have you ever jacked in? Have you ever experienced something? And it has all of these words going on the screen. It was a really memorable commercial, obviously, to the point where my friends and I started making fun of it because you saw it everywhere and you saw the trailer everywhere. Fox really went into this. They were really trying to make this a thing, as I recall it. Because, I was going to a lot of movies in 95 and I saw this trailer a lot and I saw a lot of press behind this. So I can tell you that they did not sleep on this. This was not quietly marketed. And it was actually when on video, as I recall, it was part of the Fox special series where they tried to explain letterboxing to everybody. There were these special clamshell cases that they had. Independence Day was part of that push and everything like that.
I had that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stargate.
Yep. Yes. That was on there too.
Yeah, this was that's really interesting to know because in 95, I wouldn't have been that aware of it, of what was going on and marketing around it and everything like that. Because I knew nothing about this movie going into it. Absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about the story. I knew nothing about the characters. I remember seeing a poster maybe in Blockbuster, and that's it. I didn't know it was cyberpunk. I didn't know it was noir. I didn't know it involved technology that doesn't exist. None of that. Even today, when I watched it, I went into it just knowing it was a Kathryn Bigelow film. That's literally it. And so I'm kind of. Oh yes, okay. Your question was, why did it fail? So I think this is a hard movie. I'm very surprised, with that much marketing behind it, that they didn't force it to be 2 hours or under 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I'm really surprised because, that when you're 2.5 hours, that severely limits the amount of showings that you can have during the day. And the 90s were huge on that with keeping it shorter and not expanding too much. Especially with a movie that has action in it like this one does, you'd think you'd want to keep it tight. And I do. And as I mentioned earlier, that's one of my criticisms of this film. This is a hard R, and this was hard R in the 90s. I mean, even when, even in the 2010s, when hard R films were coming out, it was hard to market. There's still a risk of how much money, do R-rated movies make money? Of course they do. But if you want a broader audience, you go to PG-13. That's just standard. That's just how it works. Is there exceptions to every rule? Of course there is. But this one is not just R, it's hard R. It has sexual assault, graphic sexual assault.
Really uncomfortable to watch.
And it's POV graphic sexual assault. And also Juliette Lewis's nipples are in it almost as much as she is. And so you can't put it on TV later on, you can't syndicate it. and also like it's dealing with hard themes. It's very nihilistic. This movie's very nihilistic, and like you dealing with Jericho 1, it hits really close to home on purpose, and a lot of people don't want to be reminded of that. They don't want to be reminded of that, and it's the
not a feel good movie.
It's not a feel good
At all.
movie. It's hard R. It's hard to market internationally in certain countries, and you have lingo that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. There's a buy-in that you need to get, and it's just I can see there's a million ways this could have gone wrong, and it did. This movie is not a slam dunk, and that's not a knock on the quality. It's just it's hard to market because you want to market for them. You want to aim high but market to the middle. Strange Days is not a movie that you can do that with.
Darren, do you think that because this came out in October, which is not exactly like that's not blockbuster season, and it's not awards season. Awards season is December, either. Right? It's not dump off season. Do you think this movie finds more purchase if they release it during what we always traditionally refer to as award season, which is closer to Christmas time, where that the movie you're going to see is about the prestige, it's about the awards, it's about the Oscar nomination? Do you think they recoup some of the marketing, maybe not monetarily, but they make it more of an awards, a prestige, elite discussion, releasing it in December?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, because you could also release it in December and angle it in your promotion as a New Year's movie, because New Year's is really not that much farther after, Christmas. I would try if I had a hand behind my back and had to, I could say, push it into December, but lean into the Millennium New Year's Eve, on New Year's Eve. I mean, I'm sure that was in the trailer. I'm sure that was a major cornerstone of the marketing, but it's a hard sell though. I mean, to all the points that Tristan said, and it's not the kind of movie that has a gotcha twist or something that you would be like, oh, I really enjoyed this because of X. I'm going to get my friends to come see it with me again. Like it doesn't have that thing. I think this is if you enjoy it, you enjoyed it once. So maybe it's not the kind of movie that gets the repeat view, and that coupled with the hard R and the, I mean, I don't know how much they spelled it out in the mid 90s. I know later they would have trailers and it would say, at the bottom, like hard, R because of X, because of nudity.
No,
they
didn't.
So
spell that out back then.
Which I liked it when they started doing that because, as we've all said, R is a sliding scale. I mean, Point Break was R, but not in the same way as this one was.
Oh,
so
that's true. That's very, very true. Because Point Break, Tristan, is it disorienting to come to this movie from Bigelow where you go from Point Break, which is sort of it's a very light thing. Like Point Break, what is that really saying? It's just it happens and it's an event and it's fun. It's sort of a pulp movie. I would contend that this is the first movie we've seen from Bigelow that's actually saying something, a lot of something, maybe not as clearly as it wants to, but it's saying something. Do you think that this is a significant step forward for Bigelow as a director as we examine her works? Do you think that this is that important leap forward for her where she's found her voice? She's found, regardless of success, how she wants to tell a story.
100%. I feel like this is the first film that I've seen of Kathryn Bigelow so far where I'm just like, okay, that was ambitious. I can see what you're doing. I can see what you're going for. She got some really great performances out of Ralph Fiennes and Sizemore and Lewis. Angela Bassett, who is a phenomenal actress. I felt like probably was the weakest in this movie.
That's fascinating. I'm going to stop you right there because Angela Bassett is the one that everybody always points to as loving her in this film. Break that down for me. You think that of the 4 names that you just dropped, she feels the most out of place? Do you think that she's the most uncomfortable with the material?
I don't know how to put my finger on it, because I remember like the most recent example is Black Panther 2, where you are blown away by her performance. And did she win? Did she win the Oscar for that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think so.
She should have, because like it's not just, that wasn't just a great performance for a comic book movie. That was a great performance. Like, she was, for a movie that was severely lacking Chadwick Boseman, she made it harder than it could have been to miss him. And everybody knows what I'm trying to say there. I'm fumbling it, but everybody knows what I'm trying to say. And so she's a phenomenal actress, and she's done some really great things. But for some reason in this movie, I really like her character, but there's certain times that she delivers her lines pretty stilted and unlike Bassett, and where you don't always believe what's coming out of her mouth. And I feel like they were laying it on pretty thick with the relationship between Lenny and Mace, where there are certain times when I was just like, oh, that could have been done more subtly, or more subtle. And I feel like Bassett was one of the reasons why I was like, you're broadcasting your feelings instead of making me feel it. And
so
you're saying
you're like Bender, or I'm sorry, not like Bender. You're like the robot devil.
The robot devil. Yeah.
Where you can't have characters just saying how they feel. That makes me angry. Gotcha.
Do you know what really kills me? Like, is that her saying, Lenny, your life is happening right here, right now. That was sampled for the Fatboy Slim song, Right Here, Right Now.
I was pretty sure it was. I'm like, that sounds just like the song.
It sounds so familiar. That blows my mind, because that's an amazing song. And to know that it's Angela Bassett saying it like all weirded out and moused up and everything.
There was another line that I felt was sampled too, somewhere else in this movie, but
I don't know.
But
I
definitely
can't remember
that one. Yeah,
but it's like, Darren, I'll let you continue. But it's just, it's not like she killed it. It's not like she did a poor job. It was just, I think, standing up against all these other people who did great jobs, and Bassett, who is a phenomenal actress, doing something that she felt out of place mixed in with everybody else.
Yeah, I was just going to say she was nominated for Best Supporting for the Academy, did not win, but won in many other awards, shows, and categories. So to no surprise for Wakanda. Yeah, I will say that was the only thing, and I think it ties in to Angela Bassett's, to Mace's character, is it was almost sidekick confusion. You know, we've talked about protagonist confusion as so far as, you know, I think if they had made a small tweak of the two of them are together from the get-go, like obviously she joins in the story very quickly, but if this story had been, I have no car, so I have to ride around in the back of my friend's limo as she picks up people, and she doesn't like that I'm hustling him, but we have this kind of friendship, but we're always keeping each other safe on the streets. Like, we didn't get, but instead they're trying for the lone noir figure riding around in his car doing his business, but then it immediately translates into this, you know, buddy story. I say loosely, but, you know, so all that to say, I think that was a bit of not confusion, but just contemplation on her character, where she's there and in times she's used a lot, and in times she's basically set dressing to get him around. And yeah, not the strongest of characters, nothing to her acting, and it's also decades earlier in her career. You know, she can progress in that ability.
She came right off of filming What's Love Got to Do with It, the Tina Turner biopic. And so like that one, she got a lot of shine on. And then she comes to this, there was heat on her where it was like, oh, Angela Bassett, who you all love from What's Love Got to Do with It, is in this movie. And it still didn't find an audience as a result. And I think that some of the stuff that makes it feel very much like a 90s movie, and Tristan, I'll throw this out to you. Do you think that the movie is trying too hard at times to make itself marketable in the way that 90s movies did, like The Crow and other films, by having musical scenes where it was like, look, kids, we have cool music club scenes going on in here? Because you talk about making the movie shorter. I'm like, there are plenty of things where I would have just, I don't need to see somebody singing a song. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, they definitely could have trimmed that down. And I was really impressed with Juliette Lewis singing her own vocals, and I actually really enjoyed what she was doing.
Covering a PJ Harvey song, no less.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
All right, coming to play.
And of course, you have the Doors song, "Strange Days."
No,
which is
no. You said that on purpose to make me angry. That is a terrible cover. It's awful. It should be stricken from the record. Go back, make a Strange Days special edition where you play the actual song.
Hey, who was playing the drums? Who was playing the drums on that cover?
I don't care.
Who was playing the drums on that cover?
I don't care if Jesus was playing the drums on that cover. Doesn't count. Not at all. No. Nah.
Oh, okay. You heard it here, folks, on Houselights, that even though the Doors were playing the drums, it's not a Doors song because it wasn't
the drums. It was Ray Manzarek. It was Ray Manzarek. It was keyboards. Okay, it wasn't drums.
Excuse me, keyboards.
No.
Excuse me,
done.
Keyboards.
There you go. You just further invalidated your take. Done with you.
But yes, that could have been trimmed down. But at the same time, it didn't feel like, oh, we're making this hip and marketable because we're putting this music in. It really felt like this is the vibe of the movie. I know we keep saying that word, and I hate using that word, but it's so applicable with this movie.
We're being hip like the kids by saying vibe. That's what we're doing. It's giving music video. How about that?
Yeah, it's just like, I think that's definitely something that we could have trimmed down, because it did go on a little bit. I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Selling Jesus, really great song, and we're still going. And we're still going. And we're done. Okay.
Still happening.
Still happening, yeah. So yes, but I really enjoyed it. Like, this is one of those, I mean, oh man, I miss the 90s. I miss the 90s music so bad. And so I can't
90s music was pretty awesome. As somebody who lived through it, it was pretty great. We were pretty.
You kids today have no idea what you're missing.
None at all.
Freaking great.
With your producers and your Taylor Swift and all of those things, you don't know what you're missing. Yeah. So, all right. So speaking of music, though, Darren, we have the music that's a character of its own in here, but you also have technically a score from Graham Revell. Is there anything memorable from the score for you?
I mean, I think there was one moment where, what did they talk about the difference between real life and movies, or not real life. They're talking about the playback and movies is in the movies, the score swells and then you hear the score swell, and then the end credits roll and it's over. And I was like, oh, it's a little on the nose, but okay. No, I think it was a decent score. Again, it's hard for me to get attached to a score that is not doing character-based tracks and not that it's not a good score. It's just those are the ones I connect to. When you have a theme, a motif connected to something, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to hum it. Just like comedy movies that are quotable are great. Scores that are hummable, are also just more memorable. So nothing against it. Just it was there.
Tristan,
Falling Into Light is great. Yeah, I mean that's the one standout score piece, and he reused it for Red Planet. He liked it so much.
Tristan, the director of photography here was nominated for a Chicago Film Critics Association Award for his work here on Strange Days. He later went on to work with Jonathan Frakes for Star Trek Insurrection, and a number of other things. Do you feel that you see a journeyman director of photography here, or somebody who's making a mark? Let me tease that out a little bit. Do you feel that this is a cinematographer who is simply taking notes from the director and translating what's going to be on screen, or somebody who is collaborating with the director to put what's on screen?
I love your 10-part questions.
That's what I live for. Don't you dare take this away from me.
No, I think this cinematographer is fantastic. I think he's absolutely making a mark. There's so much texture to this film, which I mean is in part because of the production design and the art design. Those positions need to be mentioned. Absolutely. I think they absolutely nailed this world. It was tangible. It was real. And I feel like this is one of those movies where, like, you know, Darren, you were talking about it, how if you know, like it takes place in 99, which isn't that far into the future from when it was released. And so it's just the one piece of technology that's really different. That's it. It's just that one piece of technology. And so you don't have flying cars, you don't have teleportation, you don't have space travel or anything like that takes place in 99. It doesn't look like Blade Runner in 99, which again, a cyberpunk neo-noir, whatever, comparison. There's even a Blade Runner. Yeah. There's even a Blade Runner reference in this movie when she says, dry me. But I feel like if it wasn't 99, you could easily say, oh, tomorrow, somewhere in the near future, that kind of thing. And it would absolutely work. But the cinematography, like, with the POV shots, with certain, the Dutch angles not being overused, but yet subtle enough to give you that off-kilter feel that something is wrong, or that that something is amiss. There's a really nice mixture of wides and tights and establishing shots. You never felt like you were doing the 1-2 1-2 1-2 hack. No, this is phenomenal. This is great cinematography. This is someone who's not just working for Bigelow, but working with Bigelow.
Well, and I know, to comment on the POV shots, obviously those have a huge amount of prep and thought into them. It's more than just one person pulling that out. But there were some great moments in those shots where you would see the recorder, and they, again, very clever, like in the mirror, but we know the mirror is just slightly, and then the actor is off to the side to give that POV, but they all worked. Every time they used that trick, it worked, and you felt like, oh yeah, that's right, that's the POV of the person. There's no camera in the shot. It's always what should be there. So I applaud them for that. Obviously something you have to nail if your whole stick is the POV shot.
Yeah, I think this is a cinematographer working with the director, but I also feel that this is the first time, knowing what's coming, that I see Bigelow, where I look at this and I can say, this is a Kathryn Bigelow film. I can tell certain things, not everything, but there are certain things I look at and I say, this bears the visual mark of a director who has found her voice, her style, her imprint, whatever you want to say, and it's there. I can look at it visually and I can say, this is definitely Kathryn Bigelow. And I think that is a tribute to her. I think that's a tribute to her director of photography, and the fact that I don't ask 10-part questions. I just ask very long questions. So Darren, since this is a tradition on Houselights that I don't always respect, I'm nevertheless, as we have cleared third and are heading toward home, I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts and rating of Strange Days, Kathryn Bigelow's 1995 epic of the future of the past.
Yes. I mean, every time someone sets something in 99, I always think of Entrapment and them robbing the virtual banks as they're counting down to the money. Millennium movies were fun.
Still haven't seen it.
Oh, it's fun. I still have it on VHS somewhere. Y2K the movie. It was like a made for TV movie about planes falling out of the sky and everything was going bad. It was made in like 98 or something, and I'm just, it's terrible. But This
Happy New Year.
the technical ability in this movie really shines. I just read that the scene where, she's jumping in front of the train, they played it backwards. The train was moving away, and I'm like, I would never have thought that shot was reversed. It was so well pulled off, obviously for safety and pacing reasons. So yeah, this, again, it was a nice 90s movie. As much as we talked about the technology and in the future being easier to film this kind of perspective, I don't think the story and the vibe, as we love saying vibe, but really would have been as good if you had made this in 2010 or 2015. It just would not have felt, because in that moment you had a lot of angst in society, a lot of pent up anger, especially in the Los Angeles area. So they really capitalized on that. It's a moment in time that you can't pull out and just look at and be like, no, yeah, this could be present day 2025. No, it would not have worked nearly as well. So I'm going to give it a solid 3. I compared to previous ones she's done. I think, as we've stated, it's a really hard film to market. But I could see myself revisiting it, maybe in a double bill with some other 90s noir. Like that might, if I'm in that vibe, maybe some Dark City, some things like that. I think it would be fun to watch as like a triple bill or something like that. So I'm giving it 3 jumps off of the balcony.
Tristan, when I started this conversation, I still wasn't sure whether I was going to land with a 3 or a 4 on this, because I gave Back to the Future Part 3 a lot of breaks for its technical wizardry. And this, I'm tempted to do the same thing. Darren gives it a 3. What do you give Strange Days?
I'm giving Strange Days a solid 4. I think this is a great movie. I really liked it. This really, really surprised me. Because as I said before, I went in blind. I knew nothing about it. And I think I went in with the right expectations, because I had, the only thing that I had was the warning from you about the sexual assault scene. And I really appreciate that warning because I do not handle it well. However, one of my favorite films of all time is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because it's integral to the plot. This is integral to the plot. I still fast forward it. I was able to skip it, and I still knew what was going on. Could you cut it down? Absolutely. Could you make it less graphic? 100%. And I think they should have. And I think with that and the length, that's what knocks it down a star. But I love the acting. I love the vibe. I love the texture. I love the production design, the art design, the soundtrack. The screenplay, I think, is top notch. Again, praise to Jay Cox. And I think it's Kathryn Bigelow at the top of her game at this point. I really do. I think this is a movie I'm going to watch again. And this was really entertaining.
I can say that now, being the tiebreaker between the two of you, I'm not going to wimp out and say 3.5. I'm going to say that there are certain things I struggle with this movie. There are certain things that I didn't like as much now as I did then. I think it is a product of its time. I think, Tristan, in the same warning that I sent to you, that I said something about filmmakers in the 90s they felt a lot freer pushing certain boundaries. And I think that the assault scene that you're talking about, I think I said at the time as well, it's not Rob Zombie with his director's cut of his remake of Halloween, which I consider beneath contempt, terrible. He should have never been allowed to direct a film again ever after that scene. But I don't think that I can give it a 3, because I think that it is a film that is trying to say something. And I think that there are certain technical aspects of it that I have to admire. Like, I have to watch certain scenes independent of the rest of it and say, wow, that is amazing what they pulled off. We didn't understand in the 90s what they pulled off with what they were doing with the technical wizardry. They didn't explain it enough of what they pulled off. I remember seeing this in the theater, and that first scene was like, what is even happening? Like, it was completely disorienting. And there was some real technical wizardry going on. I think it is too long. I think that Juliette Lewis, actually, of the main three on the poster, is the one who's floundering a little bit in certain scenes. She's given some exposition that she doesn't handle as well as I would have liked to see. But I will wind up giving this a 4. Part of it because of affection, because of remembering liking it a lot more back in the past, but also because it's a movie that's trying to say something. And so I'll wind up with a 4. This is, I think, an important step forward for Bigelow. And speaking of steps forward, Darren, where are we going next week with our House of Bigelow?
Darren, before you answer that,
okay.
I do want to say that I was okay. So at the end, when they were clearly broadcasting that Angela Bassett's character Mace had feelings for Lenny, and Lenny
Did
was
she
completely
have feelings? That was really subtle. It went over my head.
And Lenny was completely unawares. And then towards the end, when they were just like ending it, where it was just like, oh yeah, we've been through some stuff. We're still friends, but we've been through some stuff. And they were going in separate directions. I was kind of like, you know what? Okay, I get it. I think that was probably a smart idea not to have them get together or not have a kiss or anything like that. That's fine. And then he turns around, comes back, and just lays one on her. I was grinning like an idiot while that was going on. And it brought me so much joy where like the fanboy, or nay, I say fangirl in me, was just like kind of like, okay, yeah, I was excited that they got together. Like it gave me that happy ending that I wanted in such a nihilistic movie. And so that was 4 stars right there.
Okay. So Darren, since Tristan gave even more color to his final rating, I feel that you have extra energy to tell us where we're headed to next week with our examination of Bigelow's works.
That's right. This week we were in downtown Los Angeles. Next week we'll be traveling beneath the waves with K-19, the Widowmaker, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.